documentary about some very challenged places on earth. And these were agrarian, agricultural communities. And over the course of centuries, they had farmed their land so extensively that they had depleted it. And these were small communities. But through the depletion of their land, they began to need more land to produce the same amount of food stock. So they began to run into each other. They began to be irritated with each other to the extent that they began to fight each other. They began to really have some nasty relationships. And this happened in China, and it happened in Ethiopia, and it happened in Indonesia, where this organization came into these areas. And they said, before we can solve what it is that's going on, we have to make it worse. And the way that we have to make it worse is that we have to reduce the amount of land that you're planting, because we have to let some of the land go fallow, and we have to actually restore some of the land. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually restore ultimately all of the land so that it's all back producing the way it was 500 years ago. And in order to get there, you're going to have to put up with less. And the total extent of the project was 6 years. And so what they did was they went into the, they said, and besides having to do with less, you're going to have to work together. You're going to actually have to do jobs that you're working together. And these places were drought. And when you looked at these places were like ravaged. The trees had all been taken down for firewood. Even the bushes by humans were being eaten by their goats. You know, everything was just like done. And it was just dirt. And when the rain would come, it couldn't seep into the soil because the soil wasn't being held by anything, so it was washing topsoil. And it was just digging gullies. The place looked like trash. So they did this thing with their camera, and they edited it so that the before and after, and they kept going before, after, before, after. And the before looked like a garbage dump, and the after looked like a rainforest. Several things happened. One, streams that were only flash flood gullies, ravines rather, that were only flash flood gullies became year-round streams. Because the moisture was held in the ground by all of the vegetation and released in part every single day. And they said that the cycle of water follows the moon and the sun. The daylight and the moon at night actually is like a pulsation of the earth's blood, which is water. The remarkable nature, you should have seen how happy these people were. You know, they showed it before, and they had these grimacing faces, you know, so, and they didn't like each other, had quarrels with each other, and afterwards they were like arms around each other, and they were happy, you know. Could you imagine if we did this on a global scale? That if there was some hand that could come in, because these people that came in, this organization that came in, had to work to convince these people that they were going to have to do with less and they were going to have to work together. And they were already battling each other because they had less than what they wanted. But that they would have to go into this process to come out of this process. You can find it. It's on Link TV, and it's called, the name of the series is called Earth Focus. And this particular one in this series is called Restoring the Earth. And I said it was a tangent, but it has a deep connection. Time is an illusion, but there's a process that is attached to the illusion called aging. Aging is an illusion. But it's an interesting illusion because how many have heard of the Higgs boson? Well, the Higgs boson, a boson, you have atoms, and then the atom has a proton, a neutron in the nucleus, and then it has the electron in the orbit. The boson is a particle that's inside of those. There's quarks, or quarks, and bosons inside the protons and neutrons. And then they say that there's probably particles inside of those. But particles actually aren't particles at all. They're illusions. They're like a time-lapse photograph, right? Which is an illusion. When they started delving inside of the atomic particles, into the subatomic particles, they couldn't explain all of the various formations that they were discovering. And so out of that arose a theory, which was called the chaos theory. That out of nothing comes something. That's a given. But it comes out of, something comes out of nothing chaotically. Then they said, well, it's not totally chaotic, it's maybe chaotic, which means there's a slight order in the chaos. And then along came this gentleman, and he's still alive, Dr. Higgs. And he mathematically projected that there was a subatomic particle within that very finite condition of the sub-subatomic nature that was so finite that it was infinite. That it had no mass, but it was the energy that created all mass. And they're working with this right now with these colliders, where they'll put a block of gold and they'll collide it with electrons. Another one is a photon, is a particle of light. And they find that they can actually, out of a massless condition, they can produce mass, which is literally the production of matter. So this Higgs boson is actually a stream of infinity that's coming into the center of every atom at all times, which begins to explain what the yogis have said for centuries, and that is that every atom is produced anew in every moment of observation. In other words, your body is not a constant. Your body, every moment that it's observed, every moment that it's experienced, is brand new. And so, then why does it age? Well, it ages because it has memory of the previous moment. And it adds this moment to the previous moment. But what if you stopped adding this moment to the previous moment? Well, you wouldn't know anything. You wouldn't even know who you are. But what if you didn't need to know know who you are? What if you could actually use the instrument of faith? Because faith has no object. Faith is just a condition of knowing. You don't know what you know, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
If in each moment, faith could actually produce that sensation of knowing, so that you wouldn't have to know what you know, you just needed to know. And the moment, whatever the moment was, would not only have the challenge, but the solution, and you would know both. So you wouldn't have to have history. You wouldn't have to base your conclusion on history. You could just base your conclusion on knowing. This is what yogis have known for tens of thousands of years. What is the relationship to that knowing? And what is that which counterindicates that knowing? Well, the relationship